guys! Welcome to our channel. And how are you guys? I hope you're doing fine because adi na naman kita no sa may chismis na naman kita, may mga chika-chika na naman tayo mga beshies. So welcome to our Read and Talk with Bethany, Kyle, and Rachel.
Talk to me.
So, for today's video, we are going to talk and review about the novel Great Expectation by Charles Dickens.
But before we start, let's make a tradition that every start of our videos, we will going to pose like a model for 6 seconds. Are you ready, guys?
Strike a pose, and pose. Yeah!
That was savage, you guys! So, napagod niyo kung na. Napagod niyo kami magpaganda. Charot! So, hindi na natin napapadugayon ito, no? Excited din naman nga i-chika sa inyo ang magkakaratabo sa story na itong nabasa naman. Oh my God! Like, alamin niyo na lang later. So, kami nga mga best niyo excited na mag-chika for all of you. So, for the flow of our review is first short biography about sa author muna, which is si Charles Dickens, and followed by a short summary, and next we will going to talk about the major important characters, and lastly our analysis about the novel.
But before getting into the novel, let's talk a little bit about Dickens as a man and as a writer, because I think it is gonna be relevant. So, in the year 1812, Charles Dickens was born in Hampshire in the south of England. However, he spent the majority of his childhood in Kent before moving to London with his family. So, despite the fact that Dickens did not come from a working class background, he was well aware of the indigeneity that working people faced in England.
Dickens' job as a journalist is another interesting aspect of his biography. So, some of his contemporaries thought of him as a journalist rather than an artist, but this doesn't appear to upset Dickens. What mattered to Dickens was that his work was read by a large number of people. Yes, he was. So, before being released in single volumes of all his works were published in installments on the press.
Dickens is the key author if you want to study England in the 19th century, but even audience at that time would find out what was going on by reading Dickens or attending one of his readings. The fact that Dickens included references to what was going on in real life might have been great for his contemporary readers, but it can make it hard for us because many of those references can go right over our heads. Like a modern soap opera's writer, Dickens cared about the audience reaction to his writing to the point of changing the course of some characters depending on the audience response.
Because he wrote 2 endings of Great Expectations, it's a great example of what Rachel's talking about. So the original ending is sad and realistic, but the rewrite is far more joyful. So Dickens is a canonical writer, yet because of elements like this, his work is sometimes viewed as a minor when compared to other writers of his time. So when a writer changes the storyline or even the ending of a novel solely to please the audience, he loses some of the novel's artistic value or even the literary significance or merit.
Great Expectation follows the childhood and young adult of Pip as a blacksmith's apprentice in a country village. So he suddenly comes into a large fortune like his Great Expectations from a mysterious benefactors and moves to London where he enters high society.
He thinks he knows where the money has come from, but it turns out to be sadly mistaken. The story also follows Pip's dealing with Stella, a young woman he adores but who cannot return his love.
So Pip, the protagonist and narrator of Great Expectations. So Pip begins the story as a young orphan boy being raised by his sister and brother-in-law in the marsh country of Kent in the southeast of England. So Pip is passionate, romantic, and somewhat unrealistic at heart. And he tends to expect more for himself than is reasonable. So Pip also has a powerful conscience and he deeply wants to improve himself both morally and socially.
For Stella, Miss Havisham's beautiful young world. Stella is Pip's unattainable dream throughout the novel. He loves her passionately, but though she is sometimes seems to consider it as a friend, she is usually cold, cruel, and anxious towards Pip. So as they grow up together, she repeatedly warns him that she has no heart. Oh, di ba? Sana all ginapalangga. Bisan, ang trato ni Simu napaka-cold. O, di ba? To all the men out there, be like Pip, you know that? Ah!
Miss Havisham is a wealthy, eccentric old woman who lives in a manor called Sati's house near the Peace Village. She is a manic and often seems insane, flitting around her house in a faded wedding dress, keeping a decaying feast on her table and surrounding herself with clocks stopped at 20 minutes to 9. As a young woman, Miss Havisham was jilted by her fiancé minutes before her wedding, and now she has a vendetta against all men. She deliberately raises Stella to be the tool of her revenge, training her beautiful ward to break men's hearts.
Abel Magwitch, the convict, a fearsome criminal. So Magwitch escaped from prison at the beginning of Great Expectations and terrorizes Pip in the cemetery. So Pip's kindness, however, makes a deep impression on him, and he subsequently devotes himself to making a fortune and using it to elevate Pip into a higher social class. So he becomes Pip's secret benefactor behind the scenes, so funding Pip's education and opulent lifestyle in London through the lawyer Jaggers.
Joey Gregory, or Pip's brother-in-law, the village blacksmith. Joey stays with his overbearing and abusive wife, known as Mr. and Miss Joey, solely out of love for Pip. Joey's quiet goodness makes him one of few completely sympathetic characters in Great Expectations. And although he is uneducated and unrefined, he consistently acts for the benefit of those he loves and suffers in silence when Pip treats him coldly.
Jaggers, the powerful, foreboding lawyer hired by Magwitch to supervise Pip's elevation to the upper class. As one of the most important criminal lawyers in London, Jagger is privy to some dirty business. He consorts with vicious criminals and even they are terrified of him. But there is more to Jaggers than his impenetrable exterior. He often seems to care to Pip, and before the novel begins, he helped Miss Havisham to adopt the orphan Stella. Jagger smells strongly of soap. He washes his hands obsessively as a psychological mechanism to keep the criminal taint from corrupting him.
Mrs. Joe, Pip's sister and Joe's wife, known only as Mrs. Joe throughout the novel. So Mrs. Joe is a stern and overbearing figure to both Pip and Joe. So she keeps a spotless household and frequently menaces her husband and her brother with her cane, which she calls the tickler. So she also forces them to drink a foul-tasting concoction called tar water. So Mrs. Joe is pretty and ambitious. Her fondest wish is to be something more than what she is, a wife of a village blacksmith.
Herbert Pocket. So Pip first meets Herbert Pocket in the garden of Sappy's house when, as a pale young gentleman, Herbert challenges him to a fight, diba? So years later, they meet again in London and Herbert becomes Pip's best friend and key companion after Pip's elevation to the status of gentleman. So Herbert nicknames Pip is Handel. So he is the son of Matthew Pocket and Miss Havisham's cousin and hopes to become a merchant so that he can afford to marry Clara Barley.
Wemmick, Jagger's clerk and Pip's friend, Wemmick is one of the strangest characters in Great Expectations. At work, he is hard, cynical, sarcastic, and obsessed with portable property. At home and Waltworth, he is jovial, wry, and a tender caretaker of his aged parent.
Compeyson, a criminal and the former partner of Magwitch. He is an educated, gentlemanly outlaw who contrasts sharply with the coarse and uneducated Magwitch. So Compeyson is responsible for Magwitch capture at the end of the novel. He is the man who jilted Miss Havisham on her wedding day.
So Biddy. Biddy, a simple, kind-hearted country girl, and Biddy first best friend when Pip they attend school together. So after Mr. and Miss Joey is attacked and becomes an invalid, Biddy moves into Pip's home to take care for her. Throughout the most of the novel, Biddy represents the opposite of Stella. She is kind of plain, kind, moral, and of Pip's own social class.
Bentley Jamal, an oathfish and pleasant young man who attends tutoring session with Pip at the Packett's house. Jamal is a minor member of the nobility and the sense of superiority this gives him and make him feel justified and acting cruel and harshly towards everyone around him. Jamal eventually marries Stella to Pip's chagrin. She is miserable in their marriage and reunites with Pip after Jamal dies some 11 years later.
For our analysis, the major conflict of Great Expectations revolved around Pip's ambitious desire to reinvent himself and rise to a higher social class. So his desire for social progress stemmed from a desire to be worthy of Stella's love. She's more beautiful than anybody ever was, and I admire her dreadfully, and I want to be a gentleman on her account, as he said. So the plot gets underway when Pip is invited to go to Sandy's house and first encounter Stella and Miss Havisham. So the inciting action, however, has actually been earlier when Pip had a seemingly random encounter with an escaped convict. Neither he nor the reader will know for a long time that the encounter will actually determine the course of his life. So the rising action progresses as Pip becomes increasingly dissatisfied with the prospect of living a simple life as a country's blacksmith. As he explains, I never shall or can be comfortable unless I can lead a very different sort of life from the life I lead now.
Pip receives news that he is going to be financially supported by an anonymous benefactor and moves to London, where he becomes more refined and sophisticated while also becoming extravagant and stress-absorbed. So after so many years, Pip is astonished to discover that his benefactor is actually Magwitch to be convict. So this discovery intensifies the conflict around Pip's desires to be perceived as a gentleman and to be loved by Stella. And since he is now tainted by an association with a criminal, the rising conflict forces Pip to declare his love to Stella since he is planning to leave to England and in order to cover up his secret. So he tells her that you are part of my existence, part of myself. O diba? But she explains that she plans to marry another man. So this conversation resolves part of the conflict, making it clear to Pip that Stella is incapable of loving him. Bessie! Sa'yo na, Bessie! Pero okay lang yan. Sana all, Pip.
The conflict surrounded Pip's shame at his social background and desire to be a gentleman continues as he struggles to protect Magwitch and gets him to safety. Along the way, Pip realizes that Magwitch is Stella's father. This discovery transformed Pip's understanding of social position and criminality. Up to this point, Pip has considered Stella and the criminal underworld Magwitch represents as oppositional to one another. But now, Pips understands that Stella and Magwitch have always been interconnected. At the novel climax, Pip confides to a dying Magwitch that his lost child is living now. She is a lady and a very beautiful, and I love her. By showing kindness to a criminal and describing Stella as both lady and a daughter of a convict, Pip shows that he no longer thinks about social position in a black or a white way. The conflict resolved with Pip's letting go of his social aspiration in order to focus on reconciling with the characters who have been loyal to him all along, paying off his debts and earning an honest living.
There you have it, guys, The Greatest Expectations by Charles Dickens. How are you feeling, guys, Beth and Rach, that you finished reading the book?
So, no, yung nafe-feel ko, dun talaga ako kasi sa part ni Pip at ni Stella Kasi, para sa akin, ang sakit-sakit talaga ng ending. Like hindi sila nagkatuluyan, nag-marry si Stella ng ibang lalaki, diba? Rather than Pip. So, ang sakit. Yung ginawa lahat ni Pip, from yung bata pa sila, na hanggang tumanda sila, parang yung love for Stella nandun pa rin. So, sana all ganun yung mga lalaki ngayon. Parang si Pip lang, diba? Na kahit hindi alam na merong tsansa sa isang babae, na yung love nandun pa rin sa heart. Sana all talaga, mega na kaya. Pero yun man talaga yung feeling ko dito sa story. Yung pinaka hindi ko makakalimutan yung mga nandun yung mga parts niya. So, yun yung feel ko towards the story. Kasi parang bida kasi silang dalawa dun diba? So, yun lang. Yung aking feels.
I am so proud of myself for finishing The Great Expectation book, and it was truly delight to read. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. At first, I was so lazy to read it because I found it so wordy until one day I found myself reading that book and I want to finish it. The storyline is so interesting that I could not put the book down. I like the story a lot because it is very nice and I could learn a lot of things. I think everybody should read this book because it is very interesting and it changes the way everybody is used to think.
So, how about you naman, sis Kyle? Besh, yan ang nafe-feel mo dyan.
For me, I felt proud because first time ko makatapos read ng English na book, and also happy because I learned a lot from the novel that I can apply to myself and to my life. So one of these are being a good person is more important than wealth. Also, good deeds will come back to benefit you, and bad deeds will come back to haunt you. So family is the most important wealth, and true love is classless, and many more.
So that's it, guys. Sana nagustuhan yung ating chika for today. And thank you all for listening, and thank you rin sa supports. If meron dyan kami mga supporters, mga fans, mag-ingay! Yun, thank you sa pag-stay sa aming video throughout the end. And for our next video pala, guys, we're going to talk about the literary devices in Great Expectations. So, may connection pa rin yun, mga marites, no? So, yun lang, guys. And thank you so much!
So, please stay tuned in our channel and please like and subscribe. See you guys! Bye!